Are you a student or a working professional who is looking for a great career in software development? Then you have to think about the aspects like what is the trending technologies in the industry and the kinds of questions being asked in an interview or how to improve your CodeChef ranking. If you are like this, then this Unacademy subscription of career as a software developer is definitely for you. Our hosts are working with some of the top companies like Google and Amazon. They will walk you through their own industry experience and interact with a lot of guests like HR and industry leaders of top companies where they will ask questions raised by you. We will be covering a lot of content that will benefit your career. Like in live episodes, you get an opportunity to ask tech HRs about top 20 interview questions and industry leaders directly about the recruitment process in startups or MNCs. Guys, even you get your resume and your projects improved by getting them reviewed by the expert SDEs. You can learn about cloud computing, blockchain, top interview questions, and get placement tips and hacks under this career as a software developer subscription of Unacademy. In this show, the host would help users understand how applications which we use on our Android phones are made. In these sessions, Yash Kukreja will take the learners through how to get started with native Android development in detail. If you are curious about how Android apps are made, this session is definitely for you. The show consists of learning Java language for Android and building block of Android Studio IDE to make native Android apps. If you want to know more, the link is in the description box. Hi guys, welcome to Code Bashers. Guys, in this video I will be discussing what is a constructor, what are the properties of constructor, what are the different types of constructor. Now all these things we will understand with the help of the code, and in the end we will see what is a destructor. Now guys, before moving ahead of this video, I am assuming that you guys know about what is a class, what is object, how we declare methods inside a class, how we declare data members inside the class. If you know all this, then you can continue with this video. Guys, this is the third part of the OOPS for interview series in which I am discussing the constructors and destructor. In the first two parts I have discussed what are the four pillars of OOPS. In the next video I have discussed the access modifiers in OOPS. All these videos you will find under this OOPS for interview playlist. I will give the link of this playlist in the I button or in the description box. So make sure to check these videos also. Guys, if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe it as well as join my Telegram groups also. I post regular updates on different companies which are hiring as well as the questions which are getting asked in them. So guys, now let's start this video, and before starting a video, please hit the like button for this video and subscribe button for this channel. Okay, first of all, what is a constructor? Now constructor is a special type of method inside a class which helps in initializing objects value when they are created. Now what are the properties of constructor? First of all, constructor has same name as the class itself. Constructor don't have a return type. A constructor is automatically called when an object is created. Now I know these things will not be clear to you. Let's just understand these things with the help of an example, or you can say with the help of a code. So now this is a class. This is a class helper. Now, and this is the main function. Now what we'll do, we have to first create a constructor. Now first of all, what is a constructor? Constructors are used to help initialize the object's value. So like see, this is a class. Now it has, let's suppose, two data members. So let's say int x and second data member is int y. Now you know that for each object that is created of this class, it will have different x and y's. For every object, x and y values will be different. So therefore, what does constructor do? Constructors help us in initializing the data members, or you can say the values of the objects. Now properties, see, constructor has the same name as the class itself. So let's just define constructor. So it will have the same name as that of a class, and it is a method. So this is the same name as that of a class. Second is constructors don't have a return type. So you can see that here constructor does not have a return type. Third is constructors are automatically called when an object is created. Okay, so let's just see with the help of an example. Now we all know what is a constructor. Constructor is a method. So how we define a method? We define a method like this, and this constructor method helps in initializing the object's value. So what are the object's value? Here it is x and y. So x is equivalent to 0. Inside this constructor we can initialize these values, and y is equivalent to 0. Now let's just understand the third point. The constructors are automatically called when an object is created. So let's just suppose we are not initializing x and y with ones, but we are initializing x and y with ones. Sorry, we are not initializing x and y with zeros, but we are initializing x and y with 1. Okay, so now what we'll do, we will first create an object. So this class part is over. Now in the main function, what we'll do, we'll first create an object. So how we will create object? Helper, the name of the class, then the name of the object. Let's suppose it is h1. So now when this h1 is created, this property shows that a constructor is automatically called when an object is created. So when this h1 is created, it means this constructor was automatically called, and once this constructor was called, it means the values inside this methods were automatically initialized with 1. So here now x value has become 1 and y value has become 1. So now let's just see whether it is initialized or not. So let's just see out h1 dot x space h1 dot y. Now see one more thing, we are able to call these values with the help of the object using dot operator because these values are public. If they were private or some other type of data specifier, then we won't be able to call these values like this. If you want to know more about these access specifiers, I will give the link in the I button. Do check that video also. So now once we will write this particular code, we will be printed 1. So let's just return 0 from here and let's just run it. So it should give us 1. Let's just see what it gives. So it should give us 1 space 1 because we are printing the values of x and y. Okay, so you can see that it is giving us 1 and 1. So you can see that, see, if we had initialized it with, let's suppose 2, if we had initialized with, let's suppose 2, now we will run it, then it will give us 2 space 2, then it will give us 2 space 2, and you can see that it is giving us 2 space 2. Now what does this specifies? This specifies that, see, this method, that is this constructor, we have not called by ourselves, but when this object was created of this class, this particular constructor method was automatically called. We are not able to see here, but once an object is created, this constructor is automatically called and all the values of the object is initialized with the specified value. So now I hope you are clear with the concept that what is a constructor. It is a method which helps in initializing the values of the class, or you can say with the values of the object, and it does not have a return type, and it is called whenever an object is created. We do not have to call it separately. We do not have to call the constructor separately. It is called whenever our object is created. So now the basic definition of constructor and basic syntax of constructor is clear to you. Now next you will see that what are the different types of constructors. First of all is the default constructor. Now default constructor is a constructor which doesn't take any argument. It has no parameter. Now guys, one thing, see, I am writing the entire code in C++, but the concepts of these constructors like default constructor, and we will study more types of constructor later in this video, the concept remains same in all the languages, but I am coding in C++. The concept remains same. There might be a difference in the syntax of different languages, but the concept is same for all the constructors. Now default constructor, we have studied that it does not take any arguments and it has no parameters. See, the constructor that I have shown you earlier in this video, this constructor, this is an example of a default constructor because it is not taking any of the arguments. It has not taken any argument. So this is the example of default constructor. So I hope you are clear with the thing that what is a default constructor. It does not take any arguments or parameters. Now next we will see what is a parameterized constructor. Now in this constructor we pass arguments to constructor. These arguments help initialize an object when it is created. Again, let's just see, this constructor we pass arguments to constructor and these arguments help initialize an object when it is constructed. Now see, in this particular constructor there were no arguments that were passed to it and we have simply initialized x and y value with 2. But see, when we create different objects, like here we have created only h1, but let's just suppose we have to create 2 objects, h2 also. Now in this case what will happen, the x and y values of h1 will also be 2 and the x and y value of h2 will also be 2 because this is a default constructor. We are not taking any parameter. Now if we want that the x and y value of h1 should be some values and the values of h2, x and y values of h2 should be different, then what we have to do, then we have to define a parameterized constructor in which we will pass the arguments. Let's just see, since it is a constructor, the name will be same as that of the class, and in this, since it is a parameterized constructor, we will pass 2 arguments, that is int x1, int y1. Now what we'll do, we will initialize the value of x and y, with these x1 and y1. So x is equivalent to x1, y is equivalent to y1. Now Now see, we have defined two different types of constructor in a single class. Now, when this helper h1 and h2 will be called, since these h1 while creating the objects, we are not passing any arguments to it, then the default constructor will be called. For this particular example, that is helper h1 h2, the default constructor will be called automatically, that is where no arguments are present. But let's just declare it like this: helper h1 and next line helper h2, and let's just pass two arguments here, that 3, 4. Now see, in helper h1 we have not passed any arguments, so for this particular object, this particular constructor will be called, because at a particular time only single constructor can be called. So for this h1 we have not passed any argument, so by default this default constructor will be called. But for helper h2 we have passed two arguments in it, so for this particular object, this particular constructor will be called, and the values of this h2 object of x and y will be initialized to x1 and y1. Now if we will print our values of different objects, so for h1 like this we will print now for h2 also, that is h2 dot x and h2 dot y. Okay, helper h1 has called default constructor and h2 has called the parameterized constructor. Now the h1 x and h1 y should print, but they should print you can see they can print 2, and h2 dot x and h2 dot y should print 3 and 4. Now let's just run it and let's see the difference. Okay, so let's just simply run this particular program. Now in this case, in the first line there should be 2 space 2, and in the next line, okay, there is an error, cout okay why okay, so there is, we have not put the colon, now semicolon. Okay, now it should go with 2 space 2, and in the next line it should give us 3 space 4. So it means that in a particular class we can have more than one type of constructor. See, this is a default constructor and this is a parameterized constructor. For one object we can call the default constructor by not passing arguments while declaring object, but for the second type of the constructor, while declaring object, we will have to pass the arguments for our x and y values to be initialized with the values that we want. Okay, so I hope now these two things are clear to you. Now let's just see one more thing. Now I have missed a thing while you can say while explaining this default constructor. Now let's just forget that we have defined a parameterized constructor. Let's just forget we have not defined the parameterized constructor. Okay, let me just comment it. Okay, so now we only have a default constructor placed here, and we have declared an object using default constructor only. But now let's just suppose that if we do not declare any constructor, on our own in the class, then what will happen? Now we are calling this a helper h1 and there is no constructor defined inside this class. So what will be the values of x and y here, and in the end we will print the values of x and y of this particular object. So now let's just run this code and let's just see that what are the values of these of x and y for this h1 object, because we do not have any constructor defined inside the class. Okay, so you can see that these are the 0, 0. So since we have not defined any constructor, so there is an default constructor that has been given to us by the compiler. So even if we do not define any constructor in the class, then the compiler of C++, or you can say different languages, creates the calls the constructor implicitly. When we are defining the default constructor on our own, then we are defining an explicit constructor. But when we do not define any constructor, the compiler provides an implicit constructor for initializing the value of the object to their base values. So int x will be 0 and int y will also be 0. So I hope these two concepts are clear to you. So now we have seen that what are default constructors and what are parameterized constructor. Now guys, see, in a class if there are more than one type of constructors which are present, then this is also known as constructor overloading. So I have discussed this also, that if in a class there are more than one type of constructors are present, then it is known as constructor overloading. So now we have discussed two types of constructor. So guys, for all the languages these two types of constructor will be present. Now we'll see the third type of constructor, that is the copy constructor. Now guys, this particular constructor is not present in Java, but it is present in C++. I am repeating, till 1 and 2 constructors are present in C++ and Java, but this third constructor is only present in C++, it is not present in Java. So now we will see that what is a copy constructor. Okay, in a copy constructor is a member function that initializes an object using another object of the same class. Okay, so let's just see with the help of an code. Now see, we have seen that what is a default constructor and what is a parameterized constructor. Now I want a third object. We have declared two objects already. Now I want that I have to declare the third object, and I want that all the values of this third object should be same as that of the second object. I am repeating, we in the copy constructor, what we want that, let's suppose we have declared the third object, we wanted all the values of this third object should be similar to all the values of the second object. Now this is what a copy constructor do. It copies the value of one object to the other object of the same class. These two objects must be, h2 and h3 must be of the same class to get values copied into one and another. Now for this, what we'll do, we will define a copy constructor for this thing. How we will define? The name of the constructor will remain same, as it is the name of the constructor is the name of the class itself, and in this we want that the current object's value is similar to the object that is passed to it. So in this, what we'll do, we will do constant, we will pass it as a constant, and we'll pass the another object of the same class, let's suppose h we have passed. This is how we are declaring the copy constructor. Now in this, what we'll do, we want that x, the value of x should be equivalent to h dot x, that is x value should be equivalent to the x value of this object. Now next is, we want that y value should be equivalent to the y value of this h object that has been passed, so it will be h dot y. This is how we create a copy constructor. Now how we will call it? See, we all know that constructor get called whenever an object is created. So now we have h1 and h2 as an default and a parameterized constructor, but we want that our values of h3 should match exactly with the h2. In this, what we'll do, we will pass in the parameter, we will pass h2 as an argument, and when we have passed h2 as an argument, then this particular constructor will be called for this object. That is, you can see that this is the argument, that is object of the same class, and these values of x and y will be created. Now let's just see that whether the values of h3 is same as h2. We know that the values of h2 is 3 and 4, and we want to see the values of h3 also. So let's just see by printing the values. Okay, so let me just copy paste it. Okay, now while we are running it, I will tell you that there are two concepts involved in this particular copy constructor, that is deep copy and shallow copy. And if you want that you want to study in detail about these two things, please write in the comment section. I will make the separate video for the explaining of deep copy and shallow copy. Okay, while they are running it, you can see that now these are the values of h1 object that was used using the default constructor. The 3 and 4 are the values of the second object that was created using the parameterized constructor, and 3 and 4 are the values of the copy constructor. That is, we wanted that the values of third object should match exactly with the second object. So what we have done, we have defined a copy constructor. This is how we have defined it, and how we have called it. We have simply called it using helper h3, and in bracket we have passed our h2. So you can see that the values of third object is similar to that of the second object. So this is what a copy constructor is. So guys, I hope the things are clear to you, that what are the constructors and why do we use them, and what are the different types of constructor. And if interviewer asks you to write the code, then I hope that after watching this video you will be able to write the code to the interviewer. And as I have told you earlier also, whenever there are more than one constructors present in a class, then it is known as a constructor overloading. This is the concept of constructor overloading. So I hope now constructors are clear to you. Now let's just see that what are destructors. So destructors in an instance member function which is invoked automatically whenever an object is going to be destroyed, meaning a destructor is the last function that is going to be called before an object is destroyed. See, what are constructors? Constructors are called whenever the object is created. Just as the object are created, the constructors are called, like here. But what is a destructor? Destructors are called just before the object is getting destroyed. So this is the main difference between what is a destructor and what is a constructor. Now what are the properties of destructor? Destructor function is automatically invoked when the objects are destroyed. As I have told you, it is opposite of constructor. Second is, it cannot be declared static or constant. Again, it is a property. Now the destructor does not have arguments, because it is just like default constructors. Like default constructors do not have any arguments, so default destructors also do not have any arguments. Okay, now it has no return type, not even void. So as constructors, we know that constructors do not have any return type. Similarly, destructors also do not have any return type. So these were the basic definition that what is a destructor and what are the properties of destructor. So guys, I hope the entire video is clear to you. I hope you got the entire concept about constructors and destructors, as this is the very commonly asked question in an interview about constructors, type of constructors. I hope after watching this video you will be able to answer these questions to the interviewer. So guys, this was it for the video. I hope you liked the video. Guys, if you found this informative, please like this video, subscribe the channel, join the Telegram groups. The links are in the description box. Thank you for watching it.